Hi everyone, my name is Adenike. In this tutorial today, I'm going to show you how to draft and cut this beautiful dress showing on the screen. While my next video is going to be on how to sew it. Here's the mirror mikado that I'm going to use for the tutorial. I have 3 yards of it here. My matching zipper and this beautiful applique that I'm going to use to design the front of the dress. Now let's begin. So here's my pattern paper. I'm going to draft my front part first. I'm starting by ruling out my starting point. Now, from my starting point, which is also my shoulder line, I'm going to measure out all my vertical measurements. My bust point of 9 inches, my waistline of 15 inches, my hip line of 22 inches, and the full length of my dress, which is 53 inches. And after that, I'm going to rule out all the points. And make sure you label all the lines to avoid any silly mistakes. So on my shoulder line here from my center front, I'm going to measure out half of my nipple to nipple measurement till I reach the bottom of the dress and connect. Now for me to draw out my dart, on my waistline, I'm going to come in on both sides by ½ inch, which is 0.5. So from my bust point line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. This is where my dart is starting from. And from my hip line, I'm going to come up by 1 inch. This is where my dart is going to stop. I'm going to connect this way. So on the upper part here, which is my shoulder line here, I'm going to come in by 1 inch on both sides just for me to tighten up these upper parts. And I'm going to connect this way. So after doing so, from my center front of my shoulder line, I'm going to impute half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches. And from here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. And from this 1 inch downward, I'm going to impute half of my round armhole. And what I have here all together, I'm going to repeat it here on my center front, just for me to have accurate measurement. And what I have on my shoulder line, I'm going to place it here as well and connect. So this is my armhole line and this is my chest line. Having done that, I'm going to connect my shoulder slope from my nipple to nipple measurement line, which is also my neck width. So since I'm going to cut out 2 inches from here, I'm going to extend my shoulder slope for me to draw out another armhole line. So now that 2 inches that I'm cutting out from here, I'm going to measure it from this line. I'm going to measure it out like so. So from here, I'm measuring out half of my round armhole, which is here. So this is where my new chest line is going to be, not here again. As you can see, this is my new chest line. So what I'm cutting out from here, I'm going to measure it out just to make my measurement accurate. I'll go ahead and connect like so. And after connecting, I'm going to find the midpoint of this line for me to draw out my front armhole. And from this midpoint, I'm going to measure in 0.75, which is 3/4 of an inch. I'm connecting this way slightly from my shoulder slope. And for me to complete the armhole for the front part, I'm going to place 1/4 of my bust on my chest line, which is my new chest line, which is here. And I'm connecting with the curved side of my ruler, just like this. Now on my chest line, I'm going to input 1/4 of my bust there, which I've already did. On my waistline, I'm imputing 1/4 of my waist plus 1 inch that I'm cutting out from here. On my hip line, I'm going to impute 1/4 of my hip there. So on the full length, I'm imputing 1/4 of my hip as well. So I'll go ahead now and connect all the points together like so. So on my shoulder line, I'm going to measure out 3.5 inches for my neck width from the center front, but I'm going to cut out 2 inches here for my dart. So what I'm going to do now is to just measure what I have here, which is 2.5 inches, and it's going to remain 1 inch. So I'm going to measure that 1 inch from this line now outward. That'll make it complete 3.5 inches. So from my shoulder line, I'm going to measure out 4 inches for my neck depth for the front. To make it accurate, I'm going to measure that 3.5 inches out on this down part too before connecting my neckline. I'm using 4 corners for the neckline for the front part. So the dart that I'm cutting out from here is what I'm going to measure here now from this line, just to make it complete and accurate. And I'll go ahead and connect like so. Hope you understand. If you have any question about this, you can just leave it in the comment section. I'll be waiting for you there. So this is my neckline now. Now I'll go ahead and cut it out. So after cutting out my front part, I'm going to move on to the back part. So I'll just extend all these lines that I need for the back part. My chest line, my waist line, and my hip line, and also the full length of my dress. This is my starting point for the back part, which is also my shoulder line. So from the center back here, I'm going to measure 1 to 1.5 inch for my zipper allowance from the upper part till I reach the bottom of the dress and connect. Now on my shoulder line, I'm going to impute half of my shoulder measurement. And from here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. And what I have here on my shoulder line, I'm going to repeat it here on my chest line and connect my armhole for the back, armhole line for the back part. So after connecting, I'm going to measure out half of my nipple to nipple measurement from the upper part here till I reach the bottom part and connect. To draw out my dart on the back part, I'm going to come in by ½ inch on both sides on my waistline. Come down by 1 inch from my chest line. This is where my dart is starting from, and I'm going to come up by 1 inch from my hip line and connect like so. To draw out my armhole for the back part, I'm going to find the midpoint of these 2 points, which is here. And on my chest line, I'm going to impute 1/4 of my bust there. So I'll now use the cuff side of my ruler to connect it like so. And after connecting my armhole for the back part, I'm going to connect my shoulder slope like so as well. From this line of my nipple to nipple measurement, since my neck width too is 3.5 inches. As for my neck depth for the back part, I'm going to measure 2 inches downward from my shoulder line, which I later increase to 3 inches and connect like so. After connecting, I'll go ahead and measure all my vertical measurements. On my chest line, I'm going to impute 1/4 of my bust, which I've already did. On my waistline, I'm going to impute 1/4 of my waist there. Just make sure you take all the measurement from this zipper allowance line. So 1/4 of my waist plus 1 inch dart on the waistline, which is here. And on my hip line, I'm going to impute 1/4 of my hip there. So on the bottom of my dress too, I'm going to repeat what I have on my hip line and connect. So to avoid any slip budge at the center back, I'm going to come in by ½ inch on my waistline here and connect like so. And to avoid any short of fabric at the end of the day, what I'm cutting out from here, I'm going to repeat it back here and reconnect. And after connecting, I'm going to cut it out. I'm done cutting the back. For me now to cut out the ruffle for the side of my dress, I'm going to put the two together. This is my front part because I'm going to use slash and spread method. I'm using my masking tape to hold them together like so. After putting the two together like so, I'm going to come down by 2 inches from my waistline on both front and back. Now go ahead and connect to my dart leg. But before connecting, make sure you come out by ½ inch from your dart leg on both front and back and connect like so. I later realized I want this upper part wider than this, and I increased it to 3 inches. Now I measured 2 inches downward before. So I'm making it 3 inches now, and I'm going to reconnect it on both front and back. So after doing so, I'll just connect both sides like so. So I'll go ahead and label my side. This is the front part for me to avoid any silly mistakes at the end of the day. And this is the back part. So what I have in between the two lines, I'll just divide it and measure it out. So I'm measuring 1.5 inches. I'll continue doing that till I reach the bottom of my dress and connect. So after connecting, I'm going to number them. And after the numbering, I'm going to cut it out. So now this is my center front and this is my center back. Make sure you label all the pieces to avoid any silly mistakes, please. So I'll continue cutting. I'm done cutting my front part, as you can see. I'll continue cutting. Now that I'm done cutting, this is what I have, as you can see. And this is my fabric, as you can see. I'll go ahead and cut all the pieces I have here on the table. I'm done cutting my fabric, as you can see. This is my center back. I have 2 pieces of it. And this is my side back as well. I have 2 pieces of it. On my center back, I added ½ inch all through. On my side back, I added ½ inch all through here, my armhole and my shoulder. On the side of my side back, I added 1.5 inch seam allowance. This is my side for the front part. I added 1.5 inch on the side here, but on this area that I'm touching, I added ½ inch all through. This is my center front. It's folded into 2. I added ½ inch all through. As you can see, my center front is 1 piece. And on the bottom of my dress, I added 1 inch for hemming allowance. So I'll go ahead and notch all the necessary area, the butt point area, waistline, to serve as a guide for me while sewing it. And this is for my ruffle, as you can see, for my side ruffle. I've cut it out as well. Make sure the upper part here is dry and make sure you add half-inch seam allowance on the upper part here. On the bottom part here, make sure you add 1 inch seam allowance and the interval here is 3 inches. So guys, this is where I'm stopping for today. Like I said earlier, the sewing part is going to be in my next video. If you find this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel to support my channel. If you have any question pertaining to cutting and sewing, you can join me on my Facebook group, Details to Sewing, created by Akorede Adenike. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Akorede Adenike. Please show some love by liking and following my page on Facebook at Aniki Culture. Till I see you in my next video, guys. Stay safe and stay blessed. Bye.